Seeds of Resilience. Paris greeted Olivia with rain-slicked streets and the distant chime of Notre Dame as her taxi wound through the narrow streets of the 6th arrondissement. Her apartment was a tiny 6th-floor walk-up with slanted ceilings and a view of neighboring rooftops, but it was hers. A clean slate. 3,000 miles from the whispers and pitying glances. The prestigious Institut Gastronomique de Paris became her sanctuary. Olivia threw herself into the program with ferocious dedication, arriving before dawn to practice knife skills and staying until the cleaning staff shooed her out. In the kitchen, surrounded by the symphony of sizzling pans and the disciplined choreography of professional cooking, she found something she'd lost: purpose. "Your technique is impeccable." Mademoiselle Blackwood, Chef Marcel, her instructor, commented one evening as she plated a deconstructed tarte tatin. "But your dishes lack soul. They are technically perfect but tell no story." His words stung, but Olivia recognized their truth. She had been cooking with her head, not her heart, too afraid to infuse her creations with emotion after having it so thoroughly crushed. That weekend, rather than practicing her French mother sauces for the 100th time, Olivia wandered through Parisian markets. She sampled cheeses with histories older than her hometown, touched herbs that perfumed her fingers for hours, and watched elderly women argue passionately about the proper ripeness of a peach. In a small bistro in Montmartre, she tasted a simple coq au vin that brought tears to her eyes, not because it was revolutionary, but because it tasted of someone's grandmother's kitchen, of tradition handed down and cherished. "This is what I've been missing," she whispered to herself. The next day, for her midterm project, Olivia prepared a dish she hadn't made since she was a child: her grandmother's blueberry clafoutis with a lavender crème anglaise. As she served it to Chef Marcel, she told him the story of picking wild blueberries in Connecticut forests, of her grandmother's arthritic hands showing her how to fold the batter just so. "Now this," he said after tasting it, "this has a soul." 6 months into her program, Olivia's reinvention was taking shape. Her Instagram account, once filled with engagement photos and wedding inspiration, now showcased her culinary journey. She had made friends, real ones, who knew nothing of James or her abandoned wedding, and even gone on a few casual dates, though none had sparked anything beyond pleasant conversation. On a particularly beautiful spring day, Olivia was assigned to assist at a private cooking demonstration for visiting dignitaries. The host venue was Le Jardin, one of Paris's most exclusive restaurants owned by Ethan Beaumont, a French-American restaurateur known for his innovative approach to traditional cuisine. Olivia was chopping herbs when Ethan Beaumont himself walked into the kitchen. Unlike the celebrity chefs she'd encountered, with their loud voices and intimidating presence, Ethan moved with quiet confidence. At 42, his dark hair was threaded with silver at the temples, and laugh lines framed intense gray eyes that missed nothing. "The herb oil is too green," he said, stopping at her station. "It will overwhelm the delicacy of the scallops." Embarrassed, Olivia began to apologize, but Ethan picked up a lemon. "Try adding a few drops of juice," he suggested. "The acid will mellow the chlorophyll." He was right. The oil transformed from aggressively herbaceous to perfectly balanced. "Thank you, chef," Olivia said. "You're the American in Marcel's program, aren't you?" Ethan asked. He mentioned a student with exceptional technique who was finally learning to cook with her heart. Olivia blushed. "I'm still learning." "We all are," Ethan replied with a genuine smile that transformed his serious face. "That's what makes this profession worth pursuing." The demonstration went flawlessly, and afterward, Ethan asked to see Olivia's portfolio. She showed him photos of her dishes, explaining the inspiration behind each one. "You have something special," he said finally. "Not just skill, but perspective. How would you feel about an apprenticeship at Le Jardin once your program ends?" Olivia's heart stuttered. Le Jardin was a Michelin-starred establishment. Positions there were coveted, fought over by chefs with decades more experience than she had. "Why me?" she asked, unable to help herself. Ethan's gaze was steady. "Because when I tasted your blueberry clafoutis at the faculty showcase last month, I didn't just taste a dessert. I tasted a story of resilience, and that's the kind of cooking that changes people. As Olivia walked home that evening, the Parisian sunset painting the city in hues of gold and rose, she realized that for the first time in almost a year, she had gone an entire day without thinking of James. Instead, her mind was filled with possibilities, with recipes she wanted to create. With the approving nod Ethan had given her improved herb oil, her phone chimed with a text from Natalie. "How's Paris treating you?" Olivia stopped on the Pont des Arts, looking out over the Seine, and typed back, "I think I'm finally finding my way." The taste of success. 3 years passed like the turning pages of a well-loved cookbook, each day distinct yet flowing naturally into the next. Olivia's apprenticeship at Le Jardin had evolved into the position of sous chef, and at 29, she had established herself as a rising star in Parisian culinary circles. Under Ethan's mentorship, she had flourished. He challenged her, trusted her instincts, and gave her the freedom to develop seasonal menus that showcased her evolving style, a harmonious fusion of French technique and American comfort, elevated by unexpected flavor combinations that told stories on a plate. Their professional relationship had deepened into friendship, built on late nights perfecting dishes and early mornings at markets selecting the day's ingredients. Ethan, divorced for a decade with no children, had initially seemed intimidating with his exacting standards and formidable reputation. But Olivia had discovered the man behind the legend, thoughtful, wickedly funny, and surprisingly vulnerable about his own journey from a difficult childhood in Lyon to culinary success. "We're expanding," Ethan announced one evening as they shared a bottle of wine after closing. "I've purchased that space in New York, the one overlooking Central Park." Olivia's stomach tightened. New York meant America. America meant closer to Connecticut, to memories she'd carefully packed away. "That's wonderful," she said, forcing enthusiasm. "Who will you send to oversee it?" Ethan swirled his wine, studying the ruby liquid. "I was hoping you would consider taking the lead. As executive chef, the offer was extraordinary, a vote of confidence that would catapult her career to new heights. Yet Olivia hesitated. "I built a new life here," she said quietly. "The thought of going back—" "Not back," Ethan corrected gently. "Forward. You're not the same person who left America, Olivia. You're stronger now, more accomplished. This would be your restaurant to shape." Over the next weeks, as she contemplated Ethan's offer, Olivia realized he was right. The prospect of returning to America no longer felt like retreating into pain, but like an opportunity to reclaim territory on her own terms. "I'll do it," she told Ethan, "but I want creative control over the menu and staff selection." His smile was warm with pride. "I wouldn't have it any other way." The New York restaurant Solstice opened to critical acclaim 6 months later. Olivia's vision, seasonal American ingredients prepared with French precision and global influences, resonated with diners and critics alike. Within a year, they had earned their first Michelin star, and Olivia found herself featured in culinary magazines and invited onto cooking shows. Success was sweet, but the most unexpected development was the shift in her relationship with Ethan. As they divided their time between Paris and New York, their professional partnership evolved into something deeper. It began with lingering glances across the kitchen, conversations that stretched into the early hours, and a growing awareness that they had become essential to each other's lives. Ethan was first to acknowledge it. One autumn evening, as they walked through Central Park after finalizing Solstice's winter menu. "I've been thinking about us," he said, uncharacteristically hesitant. "About how we work together, how we balance each other. I find myself looking for you in rooms you're not in." Olivia's heart quickened. At 31, she had dated casually since Paris, but had kept relationships at arm's length, protective of her rebuilt life and independence. "I've been careful with my heart," she admitted. "After what happened—" "I know," Ethan said, "and I would never rush you. But I think what we could have together might be worth taking that risk." Their first kiss came naturally that night, beneath the canopy of trees just beginning to turn gold. Unlike the whirlwind passion of her youth with James, this relationship developed with the deliberate care of a slow-cooked reduction. Intense, complex, and all the more flavorful for its patience. By the time they opened their third restaurant together in San Francisco 18 months later, they were partners in every sense. Their culinary empire, Blackwood Beaumont Hospitality Group, became known not just for exceptional food, but for their commitment to sustainable sourcing and mentoring young chefs. On the 5th anniversary of Le Jardin's opening under Ethan's ownership, he closed the restaurant for a private dinner. Olivia arrived to find the space transformed, soft lighting, her favorite flowers, and a single table set for two. "What's all this?" she asked, smiling as Ethan took her coat. "I wanted to cook for you tonight," he said, leading her to the table. "Every dish tells our story." The amuse-bouche was a refined version of the herb oil and scallop dish from their first meeting. The appetizer incorporated the blueberries and lavender from her clafouti. Each course represented a milestone in their journey together, culminating in a dessert that Olivia didn't recognize, a delicate chocolate sphere that, when broken with a spoon, revealed a small velvet box. Ethan knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Olivia, you came into my life when I thought I had everything figured out and showed me how much more was possible. You transform everything you touch, ingredients, restaurants, and especially my heart. Will you marry me?" The diamond was set in a band of brushed platinum, elegant and understated, nothing like the ostentatious ring James had given her. But it wasn't the ring that brought tears to Olivia's eyes. It was the certainty she felt, the knowledge that this love had been earned through partnership, respect, and genuine understanding. "Yes," she whispered, and as Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, she felt the last shadows of her past finally dissolve, replaced by the bright promise of their future together. The invitation. The Manhattan offices of Blackwood Beaumont Hospitality Group hummed with activity as Olivia reviewed plans for their newest venture, a culinary academy designed to provide opportunities for underprivileged youth. At 34, with 5 successful restaurants across 3 countries and a recent feature in Time magazine's 100 Most Influential People in Food, Olivia had come to value this aspect of her success the most, the ability to create opportunities for others. "The contractor needs your approval on the kitchen layout for the academy," her assistant, Daniel said, placing a folder on her desk. "And this came for you by courier." The cream-colored envelope bore her name in elegant calligraphy. Inside was an invitation on thick cardstock, embossed with gold lettering. "Mr. and Mrs. Theodore Reed request the honor of your presence at the vow renewal ceremony of their daughter Veronica Reed Harrison and James Harrison, celebrating 5 years of marriage." Olivia stared at the invitation, a peculiar numbness spreading through her fingertips. The ceremony would be held at the Reed family estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, less than an hour from where she had once stood in a wedding dress, waiting for a groom who never arrived. "Everything okay?" Daniel asked, noticing her expression. "Fine," Olivia said automatically, slipping the invitation back into its envelope. Just an unexpected blast from the past. That evening, she showed the invitation to Ethan as they prepared dinner in their Tribeca loft. Their home kitchen was their sanctuary, professional grade but designed for comfort, with copper pots hanging above an island large enough for them to work side by side. "James and Veronica," Ethan said, his knife pausing over the shallots he was mincing. "The ex who left you at the altar and the woman he left you for." Olivia nodded, sipping her wine. "Apparently they're renewing their vows, and for some reason they've invited me to witness it. Do you think it's some kind of power play?" Ethan asked, his protective instinct evident in the slight edge to his voice. "Possibly," Olivia admitted. "Or maybe it's Veronica's way of showing there are no hard feelings now that they've won." She made air quotes around the last word. "Are you going to go?" It was the question Olivia had been asking herself all afternoon. 7 years had passed since that devastating day. She had built an extraordinary life, one beyond anything she could have imagined when she fled to Paris with her heart in pieces. She was secure in her career, her relationship, her identity. "I'm not sure," she said honestly. "Part of me thinks it would be giving them too much importance." Another part wonders if seeing them might finally close that chapter completely. Ethan added the shallots to the pan, where they sizzled in olive oil, releasing their sweet aroma. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you," he said. "But for what it's worth, I don't think you have anything to prove to them." Olivia moved behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist and resting her cheek against his back. "Maybe it's not about proving anything to them," she murmured. "Maybe it's about proving something to myself." That night, unable to sleep, Olivia scrolled through social media, something she rarely did anymore. James's profile was easy to find. He had become a partner at Bedford Law as planned and frequently posted about high-profile corporate cases. Veronica's Instagram showcased their lavish lifestyle, vacations in the Maldives, charity galas, and carefully curated family photos with their 2-year-old son. Their life looked exactly as James had once described his ambitions: prestigious, wealthy, connected. Yet as Olivia studied Veronica's perfectly posed photos, she noticed something in the woman's eyes that seemed familiar. A certain tightness, a performative quality to her smile that reminded Olivia of herself in those final months with James, when she had been trying so hard to be what he wanted. The next morning, over coffee, Olivia made her decision. "I'm going to attend," she told Ethan. "Not for revenge or closure, but because I'm genuinely curious about the road not taken. I want to see them through the eyes of who I am now, not who I was then." Ethan considered her words, then nodded. "I think that's healthy. Would you like me to come with you?" The question was offered simply without pressure. It was one of the countless reasons Olivia loved him. His understanding that supporting her didn't always mean protecting her from difficult situations, but sometimes meant standing beside her as she faced them. "Yes," she said, "I would." As the date approached, Olivia found herself surprisingly calm. She selected a dress, a midnight blue Dior that complemented her figure without being ostentatious, and decided against any public announcement of their attendance. The event didn't merit disrupting their busy schedule, but they arranged to visit the Academy construction site in Boston the day after, making efficient use of the East Coast trip. 2 days before the ceremony, Olivia received a call from a number she didn't recognize. "Olivia, it's James Harrison." His voice was so familiar, yet distant, like a song from childhood suddenly heard again. Olivia's grip tightened on her phone, but her voice remained steady. "Hello, James. This is unexpected. I wanted to make sure you received our invitation," he said, "and to say that we're pleased you'll be attending." Olivia raised an eyebrow, though he couldn't see it. "I don't recall RSVPing," a small, awkward laugh. "Well, the event planner mentioned you had. With a +1! That was interesting." Ethan had handled the RSVP while she was in Paris overseeing Le Jardin's seasonal menu change. She wondered what name he had given. "Yes, my husband and I will be there," she confirmed, a small satisfaction blooming at the surprised silence that followed. "Husband? I didn't know you had married. Congratulations." "Thank you. It'll be 2 years in December." Another pause. "I'm glad you found someone, Liv, after everything. Well, I hope there are no hard feelings." The nickname he'd once called her slid off him too easily, presumptuous in its familiarity. Yet Olivia felt no sting, only a mild annoyance at his assumption that she would harbor resentment rather than having moved beyond him entirely. "Ancient history," she said lightly. "We're looking forward to celebrating with you both." After hanging up, Olivia sat for a moment, analyzing her feelings. There was no pain, no lingering hurt, only a calm curiosity about this man who had once seemed the center of her world and now felt like a distant acquaintance. That night, as she and Ethan finalized details for the Boston project, she recounted the conversation. "He seemed surprised to learn I'm married," she said. "I wonder if he still pictures me as that heartbroken girl, eternally mourning what might have been." Ethan's smile was mischievous. "Well, I might have had something to do with that. When I RSVP'd, I simply put Olivia Blackwood and Ethan Beaumont will attend. I didn't specify our relationship." Olivia laughed, delighted by this small omission. "That explains it. He probably thought you were my business partner or friend." "Let him think what he wants." Ethan said, his eyes warm with admiration as he looked at her. The truth will be evident enough when he sees us together. A dish best served warm. The Reed family estate sprawled across 10 manicured acres in Greenwich, Connecticut, its Georgian facade glowing amber in the late afternoon sun. As their driver navigated the winding driveway toward the valet stand, Olivia gazed through the window at the property where James and Veronica had built their life. Elegant, traditional, and precisely what James had always aspired to. Having second thoughts? Ethan asked, covering her hand with his. Olivia turned to him, taking in his tailored charcoal suit and the subtle platinum band that matched her own. At 47, Ethan carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had nothing to prove, his silver-streaked hair and laugh lines speaking to a life fully lived. "Not at all," she said, smoothing the silk of her midnight blue dress, just reflecting on how different this is from the path I once thought I wanted. The ceremony was being held in the estate's garden, where white chairs faced an elaborate floral arch. As Olivia and Ethan were escorted to their seats, she noted the ostentatious displays of wealth: crystal champagne flutes, rare orchids flown in from Thailand, a string quartet playing softly in the background. Several guests did double takes as they recognized her. Olivia had become a recognizable figure in culinary circles, her recent James Beard Award and cookbook having brought her into the mainstream. She heard the whispers. "Isn't that the woman James left at the altar?" Mingled with, "That's Olivia Blackwood, the chef," and "Her husband is Ethan Beaumont. They own Solstice." Instead of shrinking from the attention, Olivia smiled warmly, greeting those she recognized with genuine pleasure. This wasn't the revenge fantasy her younger self might have imagined, arriving with a successful man to show James what he'd lost. This was simply her life now, one she had built choice by choice, and she was neither flaunting it nor diminishing it for anyone's comfort. The ceremony began with predictable pageantry. James and Veronica processed separately down the aisle, she in a couture gown that probably cost more than the average American's annual salary, he in a bespoke tuxedo, looking much as he had 7 years ago, though with a slight softening around his jawline and the beginnings of crow's feet at his eyes as they exchanged vows, flowery promises about eternal devotion and partnership. Olivia found herself not bitter but philosophical. There was no denying that James and Veronica presented a picture-perfect image, yet something about their performance felt hollow, as though they were actors in a production of their own design. When James spoke about how Veronica had always been his perfect match, understanding his ambitions in a way no one else could, Olivia felt Ethan's hand tighten briefly around hers, not in jealousy, but in silent acknowledgement of a bullet dodged. At the reception, held in a marquee that rivaled small wedding venues in size, Olivia and Ethan moved easily through the crowd. They accepted champagne from passing waiters, made pleasant conversation with other guests, and enjoyed the excellent food, though Olivia couldn't help but mentally critique the overcomplicated plating and unnecessary foam garnishes. "Olivia," a familiar voice said behind her. She turned to find James, glass in hand, his smile a touch too wide to be natural. "James," she replied evenly, "congratulations. It was a beautiful ceremony. Thank you for coming. It means a lot that there are no hard feelings." His gaze shifted to Ethan, curiosity evident. "And this must be your husband." "Ethan Beaumont," Ethan introduced himself, shaking James's hand with perfect civility. "Lovely event." Recognition dawned in James's eyes. "Ethan Beaumont of Solstice? And Le Jardin in Paris?" "Among others," Ethan confirmed modestly. James looked between them, pieces falling into place. "You two are the Blackwood Beaumont group? I had no idea. We tried to get reservations at Solstice last month for a client dinner, but there was a 3-month waiting list." "Call my office directly next time," Olivia offered graciously. "We always try to accommodate old friends." She saw the impact of her words, not just the generous offer, but the casual relegation of their past to old friends, as though their history was benign, forgettable. Before James could respond, Veronica appeared at his side, her smile brittle as she assessed Olivia with a swift up-and-down glance. "Olivia, what a surprise to see you here," she said, though the invitation had been sent to Olivia's office address, suggesting it was no surprise at all. Veronica, "Congratulations," Olivia replied warmly. "You look beautiful. And I'm told your son is adorable. Is he here tonight?" The mention of their child seemed to momentarily disarm Veronica. "Theodore is with his nanny. It's past his bedtime." "This is Olivia's husband, Ethan Beaumont," James interjected. "They own the Blackwood Beaumont Restaurant Group." Veronica's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose fractionally. "Oh, your Paris restaurant was featured in Vogue last month. The interviewer called you a culinary power couple." "We're fortunate to do what we love," Ethan said, his arm settling comfortably around Olivia's waist. The conversation shifted to safe topics, recent travels, mutual acquaintances, the canapes being served. Yet beneath the pleasant exchange, Olivia sensed James studying her, as though trying to reconcile the confident woman before him with the devastated bride he had abandoned. "We should circulate," Olivia said after an appropriate interval. "But before we go—" She opened her clutch and extracted a business card, handing it to James. "We're opening a culinary academy in Boston next month, focusing on underprivileged youth. If your firm ever does pro bono work, we could use legal advice on our scholarship foundation." It was a masterful move, establishing her success while simultaneously claiming the moral high ground. James accepted the card with a nod that contained a hint of surprise and perhaps respect. As they moved away, Ethan whispered, "That was impressive," offering them restaurant reservations and soliciting pro bono work in one conversation. Olivia smiled. "I meant it, though. The academy is important to me, and if his firm can help, I'll take it. Success isn't about outshining others. It's about creating something meaningful." Later, as they swayed together on the dance floor, Olivia caught sight of James watching them from across the room. His expression was unreadable, but there was something contemplative in his gaze that suggested he might be wondering about roads not taken. "Any regrets?" Ethan asked, following her line of sight. Olivia looked up at her husband, this extraordinary man who had seen her potential when she was still finding her way, who challenged her creativity, respected her independence, and loved her completely. "Not a single one," she said truthfully. "Being left at the altar was the most painful experience of my life, but it set me on the path to becoming who I am. To finding you, how could I regret that?" As the evening drew to a close, they made their farewells and stepped out into the cool Connecticut night. Their driver was waiting, ready to take them to their hotel before tomorrow's meetings in Boston. "You know," Ethan said as they settled into the back seat, "watching you tonight, I was thinking about that. Blueberry clafouti you made in Paris. How? Sometimes the most authentic flavors emerge after experiencing extreme heat." Olivia smiled at the metaphor. "Are you saying heartbreak made me a better chef?" "I'm saying adversity revealed your true character," he corrected gently. "And that's what I fell in love with. Not just your talent, but your resilience. Your capacity to transform pain into something beautiful." As they drove away from the Reed estate, Olivia felt no need to look back. The woman who had once been left standing alone in a small-town church no longer existed. In her place was someone who had learned that real success wasn't measured in social status or appearances, but in the courage to remain true to oneself, the wisdom to recognize genuine connection when it appeared, and the strength to build a life of substance rather than show. The story James had rejected had become the prologue to something far more extraordinary, a life that, like the best of Olivia's creations, was authentic, complex, and ultimately deeply satisfying.